What's up, Colliders? Welcome back to another episode of the Collision Live. Daniel here, joined at the desk, as always, by the Sodom to my Gomorrah, Mr. Samuel David Kemp.
Oh, man. Like, I thought we were digging the bottom of the barrel, scraping the bottom of the barrel the other day. But
Yeah, we're going...
We're going
biblical. But I'm up. There's a lot of fun stuff for us to talk about.
Yeah.
I just had a 5-hour energy, so I got energy to talk about some collisions. But I don't know if you realize that we actually... Maybe somewhat on brand. We missed it by a couple weeks, but we had an important date in the history of our show.
We did
a couple weeks ago.
We had a 1-year birthday. For
1-year
the Collision
birthday.
Live.
We missed an opportunity for a cake. We've been doing this thing for a year, and later in the episode, we're going to kind of look back a bit, not just on the show, but just on kind of what we've seen in culture, talking about crazy stuff, pop culture for a year. But I did think that I brought a surprise to the table.
Oh boy.
We'll see how this works. But in honor of 1 year of colliding with the world for Christ on the Collision Live, cue the video. What's up, Colliders? It's Daniel here, joined at the table with this hairy Neanderthal Sam Camp, joined by the Chewbacca to my Han Solo, by the Gimli to my Legolas, by the Bert to my Ernie, by the Max to my Grinch, the Herbie the Elf to my Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, by the Paul McCartney to my John Lennon, the Wile E. Coyote to my Roadrunner, the Fozzie Bear to my Gonzo, the Cain to my Abel, by the Bonnie to my Clyde, by the Cat to my Hat, by the Godzilla to my King Kong, the Christopher Robin to my Winnie the Pooh, by the Pride to my Prejudice, by the Best of Times to my Worst of Time, by the Indiana Jones to my long-lost archaeological artifact, the Baby Yoda to my Mandalorian, by the spicy chicken sandwich to my crispy waffle fries, by the buttermilk ranch to my nice juicy teriyaki chicken wing, the Count Dracula to my reanimated undead corpse, the Logan Paul to my Floyd Mayweather Jr., by the macaroni to my cheese, by the Fast to my Furious, by the Chris Pratt to my futuristic hungry alien, by the fireworks to my 4th of July, by the GI to my Joe, by the Ungoliant to the Two Trees of Valinor, by the just add bacon menu option to my juicy quarter pounder, by the full moon to my werewolf curse, by the taco to my Tuesday, by the Ben to my Jerry's, Mr. Samuel David Kemp. Sam is a man of many names. The best part about the surprise is that we don't have audio up on the desk. So Sam has no idea what I was saying, but on playback...
I'm guessing, are those all of the...
Those are all of your many titles.
Sidekicks. That's awesome.
Many sidekicks. I went back into the archives to see how long we've been running that gag into the ground, and we'll continue to do so for a second year. But it's been fun. A lot of fun stuff going on the Collision Live.
Yeah, you can see that pandemic hair at the beginning was in full swing.
Yeah, and we'll get into some of those early videos. Not the best, but they are what they are. You got to start somewhere.
A little cringe, but hey,
But speaking of not cringe, a newer segment, recent that we're doing, pop culture news. So didn't quite nail that transition cue, but it is what it is. But so pop culture news, not a whole lot.
We're all learning and growing together here.
It's always
mistakes were made.
It's always fun here. But so things going on that that kind of jumped out to me. Again, nothing spectacular or super noteworthy. Maybe the most noteworthy one we're going to be talking about in our first segment. I don't know if you saw Michael K. Williams, actor from The Wire, a show I have not seen, but I know he's a very kind of maybe not mainstream actor, but very popular in all our roles. Died of a drug overdose at age 54. Yeah. That just happened the other day. Shang-Chi, Legend of the Ten Rings, the latest Marvel movie, which I just posted a review of on our channel the other day, broke Labor Day box office records, like $90 million. Again, it's a good movie. It should break money, but I know this is kind of first time with like an all Asian cast and exclusively in theaters, not same day. So it's obviously put a chalk on that as far as that argument goes. The Wheel of Time. I don't know. Did you see?
Yeah, I finally saw the trailer for that. Like,
we had
pretty exciting.
We had the images, the first teaser images the other day. I was excited for it. They dropped the first trailer, and this thing looks good. There's part of me that is just kind of crossing my fingers. Like, just don't be bad.
Dumb,
Like,
yeah.
don't be dumb. A lot of fantasy stuff ends up being
Well,
dumb.
I was told recently to get excited about this. Like I'm a Wheel of Time noob, so I did not read any of the books. So we'll see. I'm excited. I like that genre of movies and shows. So we'll see. I know you come at it with a lot more.
I've read all
a lot more baggage you bring.
Yeah, I've read all 14
the
books.
show.
I'm not a super purist that you can't change anything, but I just want good fantasy, and they're not to mess it up. So
Yeah.
we'll see. That actually comes out in like 2 months, so not a whole long wait.
Unlike Lord of the Rings show.
Yeah, which is under a year now. In September next year.
You can start taking rings off that chain.
Yeah, my paper chain. Kind of a funny, it's somewhat of a news story, but do you see the whole Mark Hamill?
Oh, I missed that one.
Someone had tweeted Mark Hamill, obviously the actor plays Luke Skywalker, and just said, hey, if you just tweeted your name, you'd get like thousands of likes. Like, you're Mark Hamill. And so he did. He just tweeted his name, nothing else. And as of the last time I checked, there's like over 600,000 people have liked this tweet and like shared it. And he's a legend, but I think it also just kind of stood out to me as far as like, hey, we sort of these icons that they can do no wrong. And he obviously has a big reach. Don't always agree with everything he's tweeting, but I thought that was funny. And maybe the last thing just to tie into to kind of our story last week, Patty Jenkins, who directed the Wonder Woman movies, the first one, which was fantastic, the second one, which was not fantastic. She was sort of the guinea pig for like the same day release, kind of against her will.
Yeah.
And she kind of was a good sport about that, but she's been kind of joining the Villeneuve and Nolan, some of these guys pushing back against trying to protect like the theater experience. And so she had made a comment just saying that streaming films to her, her quote is, they all look like fake movies,
which is interesting coming from her and the last Wonder Woman, because I felt like that was a fake movie.
Yeah,
like,
it's coming from.
Granted, I did watch it. I streamed it, but I do think like that was one of my, and I feel like we talked about this at the time, but one of my criticisms of 1984, or was it Wonder Woman 19 something? Anyways, the latest Wonder Woman film, it just kind of felt plasticky and not real. It was all kind of.
It was like 95% CGI made in a computer, so it's kind of by definition fake. But again, I think she's a great director. She's directing an upcoming Star Wars movie. Yeah. So I don't have a grudge against her, but it is just sort of more fuel on that fire of kind of pushing back against these sort of small screen viewing as opposed to. Yeah. So anything of that thing stand out to you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do think that. I think that we'll talk about this more in our segment on our retrospective, but I do think that has been a thing since last year and I think it's going to continue to be probably for years to come, is that of same day releases, but also just the at-home viewing versus in a theater. And I think that I think is just heating up. So I don't think we'll hear the end of that anytime soon.
Yeah, this is sort of the beginning of that kind of battle that will be going on. So we'll be kind of tracking that story. One story that we did want a news story that kind of dive into a little more depth, because this is getting more airtime, kind of more becoming a bigger conversation. I think one that's even going to ultimately expand beyond like the initial scope. And that is the Olivia Rodrigo plagiarism controversy. I know you're a big fan. She's on your go-to playlist.
Yeah, just
I'm coming at her a little more new.
Repeat 24/7, 365.
So she's sort of the next. She's sort of the current
pop icon.
Pop icon.
Yeah.
Kind of the next version of like Ariana Grande or some of these. I don't say that necessarily to like demean her or belittle what she's doing, but she's sort of like the new. She's everywhere now, and she's on all the award shows, and she's only, I think she's 18, so she's very fresh. Has one CD out. I just sort of seemed like I'd never heard of her. Now, every time I'm like looking at pop culture stuff, I see her picture and I see her stories. But she's been making the news for, I guess, less desirable reasons in the last week.
The big P word.
The big P. Plagiarism is a...
Every university teacher's, greatest fear and annoyance is plagiarism.
Yeah, which is a quick side story that I do teach online college classes sometimes. And I did have a student that caught plagiarism, and their defense for their plagiarism is that it actually wasn't them, but their mom was doing their homework the whole time, and their mother plagiarized, and that was supposed to get them out of it. So
there's some layers to that onion.
yeah,
that,
so it is plagiarism. Whether you're a
their therapist is still working.
yeah, and I hope their new school applications are going well. But so it's an issue, whether you're a teacher or not. It's sort of copying kind of intellectual properties. It's just a big. It's always been a big issue, but it seems like it's becoming more of an issue. But people started to kind of draw attention to the fact that her song "Good for You" sounds awfully similar to "Misery Business" by Paramore.
Old school now,
kind of old school. I think they're still a band, but
yeah,
the
OGs.
I actually saw Paramore at a music festival before they had a CD out,
Sweet.
and I talked to them, and they gave me their first demo, and I was like, "Hey, these guys are gonna do.
These guys are going.
They're going places." And apparently they're going right into Olivia Rodrigo's song because. This thing is wild. I don't know if you've seen.
I've seen sort of the comparison.
I know someone juxtaposed and like put the two songs and like mashed into one video, and it gets the same song. Like I know.
Yeah, it's like maybe slightly faster.
Yeah, and like there's the
tempo,
the melodies, like the breakdowns, like all the beats. Like it's the same song, and kind of from that, kind of reminds me of like the Scarlett Johansson suing Disney, and then like other actors are like, oh, I'm gonna sue Disney. Like there's been other like Billie Eilish was kind of. That just a couple of days ago talking about her song Ocean Eyes, how it sounds an awful lot like a song by kind of a lesser known artist that have been released a little bit before that. I know Blurred Lines by Robin Thicke, that whole controversy where Marvin Gaye's estate sued them and they had to pay $5 million. So again, it's an issue. It's a topic.
It's not new. Like
it's not new, but it's become kind of more just because it's happening to like
bigger
name,
names,
kind of a bigger platform, and like one of the big, most successful artists out there. So what do we do with that? I know, sort of as Christians, just as people, it's a big issue. But what are your sort of you?
Well, I'll take the ecclesiastical line on this and say there's nothing new under the sun, and so it's all plagiarism.
Yeah, it's all.
Yeah. No. Well. Yeah, it is. I mean, and I think. Or at least I feel like music is one of those areas that there's just way more hubbub about, I guess, because as we were talking before we started, like there's tons of like plots and stories that just get recycled and reused over and over again, and you don't see a fuss about that for some reason. But there's something I think unique about music, like if you're ripping off like the melody or the beat or whatever. That tends to hit more of a nerve, I think, with people. But it's been going on, like, you can, like, go back and see all, like, throughout history. It's just people, like, ripping off other people's music in some ways. But whether it's intentional. And I think that's the other thing, too, is, like, some of it's not intentional, I would say, and some of it is. And so, like, in these instances, it's like you just, like, stole the entire song and like said, hey, this is my song, and only after you get called out about it, it's like, oh yeah, well, I was inspired by Paramore.
And that is sort of because this is the crazy thing about this whole story to me is like Paramore is not some indie small, they have like a SoundCloud that like 10 people that are all family members listen to. Like this is like one of the most successful songs. It's like a #1 hit song that people,
it was huge.
People hear it. Everyone knows, like you hear it in the mall. Whether even you might not know the band or the name of the song, but like most people,
it was played.
Like it was played so much
ad nauseum.
That it's not like you're trying. Like to me, it's not like Rodrigo is trying to pull a fast one and be like, maybe no one will notice. Like it's don't stop believing. Maybe no one like you're sticking like a big song. And I think it is kind of, and like I don't know, she hasn't said a whole lot about it, but it does kind of come down to just sort of where is that line between like inspiration and like plagiarism, like stealing, and like have we lost sort of as a culture some of the, or at least like kind of the younger generations, like our generation maybe on down, as far as like where do you draw that line between,
do people even care anymore? It's like everybody's just stealing everything, and it's like, well, you're just repurposing it for this, and I do think that like in this sort of realm of 5-second videos like TikTok and stories and all the rest of it, there is just sort of this ethereal nature to visuals on social media, and so I think people just probably have less of a gripe about like, well, I know this is technically someone else's, but I'm just going to use it for my quick little story or video or whatever, and not think twice about it. But I don't know. I don't know if that's generational or, yeah.
I mean, a lot of it does happen like unintentional. Like you hear something and you don't necessarily like realize that it's sinking in, and then like when you're trying to think of it, like because that's happened to me with like stories. Like I know I've like come up with story ideas that I thought were so like original as a writer, and then later I see news, like some movie adaptation. There's a book I haven't necessarily read, but maybe I saw. Like it's basically my.
Well, I think that's the thing. You can't escape from just what you hear, but you have no idea where it came from, and so like I think there is always going to be some of that out there. But I do think like melodies and stuff for music, it can kind of just get in your head, and you won't know where it came from, but like it's there, and so you use it to write a song, and only find out later that it's like, oh, this is because I heard something years ago, and it's the exact same like beat or melody.
Yeah, so I don't know, as far as like Christians and stuff, like I think it's just sort of another example that like integrity and like stuff matters.
Yeah.
Like I don't know the whole backstory. I'm sure more of that will come out, but like it is such a like the arts and stuff, like it is so cutthroat to get ahead and like use your talents and be an artist and a musician, that like stuff like this kind of remind me that like so much of it is just sort of this like it's like a factory, like they're taking popular stuff and like putting it into a new package to try and deliver it, like,
and I think there is something to be said about that, and maybe just more like pop music or hip hop. I would just say maybe mainstream music, let's say, maybe has this more factory feel to it because it is so like overproduced, and like very few artists actually have much say in the final product of their music. And I don't know the case with Olivia, but so many like her have there's so many engineers and producers and all these people sort of packaging her to put out music, that how much of it is actually hers even to begin with, and how much of it is like the factory of her record label kind of taking bits and pieces from everything. And I think too, if there are, it's just kind of funny to me that there are these, people get upset about this, and then it's like, well, did you ever approach, like, if you're just going to basically plagiarize someone else's song, like, have you ever thought about like just going to that artist and saying, I love your music, we'd love to kind of do a pop spin on it? Like, surely there's going to be room for collaboration, but like, as long as I think people keep just trying to steal from each other, like, it's just going to continue to devolve, I feel like.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's so disrespectful, like, both ways. Like, well, why wouldn't you just, talk to them about it and see what you can figure out? But then I know there's like labels involved. And so like, even the artist, you
don't want to share the cut. But yeah, I'm curious to let you know, one of the things that Sam mentioned earlier is this, I don't know, I haven't looked in, like I have a PhD in aesthetics, the arts, but this is an area I haven't really looked into as far as like why music is such a, like tons of movies just beat for beat rip off Star Wars, or like very much inspired by, and like Tolkien, most fantasy, especially directly after Lord of the Rings, was like very much just Tolkien fantasy, like, and we tend to just be like, oh, that's just, it's a knockoff, like we acknowledge it, but it's not a big deal really, it's just a lesser kind of B-side thing. But like with music, if you take a melody, then it's like we hold that to like a different standard.
Yeah, so it feels different, and I don't know what.
So let us know if you guys have thought about that more than we have. Why does that feel different? And sort of how should Christians sort of navigate kind of being above that as far as the arts and having some integrity.
And let's be honest, every like contemporary Christian music was all sort of a rip-off of whatever the current pop culture music was.
Most Christian, we've been doing that longer than Rodrigo has. But music that someone should rip off because it's wonderful is something that I'll be sharing about in a second. Our next segment is Host Corner.
Can I just say how much I love that Ewok that just pokes his little head around?
I know, we need, maybe I'll have Joni, who's doing our graphic stuff, maybe I'll have her like animate him and give a little like wee-wah. So expect that in 2 weeks. We'll get it right on that. But so I thought I teased, I know many of you probably was waiting in anticipation from last week, to talk about something that's near and dear to
I've just
my
been-
heart.
I've been holding my breath for an entire week, and I cannot wait.
So this should be enlightening for you, for Sam, and for you watching. We can go ahead and hit that timer. Let's see.
We'll give you 60 seconds
Yeah,
to
perhaps I need more time to
make your pitch.
There we go. So power metal opera is something that if it's not familiar to you, it should be. Power metal is, when people think of like metal, heavy metal, they think of like screaming and stuff. Power metal is not that. Power metal is very melodic, a lot of melodies, kind of big, bombastic sound to it. It's, a lot of solos, a lot of speed, and the opera part is not like operatic singing, but a metal opera. So this is a CD that has different singers that take different parts, different characters. It tells an overarching story. And Matthew Danielson's Legend of Valley Doom, this is some guy in Norway that's just sort of on his own. He's an indie guy. He raises money for this. And he put out 3 power metal opera CDs. And these things are fantastic. This is filled with cheesy narration, probably about 50 singers. He has Gimli, the actor that did Gimli, sings in one of his power metal songs. And this, if you want an introduction to power metal, this is the thing to do. Matthew Danielson's Legend of Valley Doom. And as my timer keeps going, I will add that his brother, who plays keyboard for him, has his own side project metal band called Eunomia, which is set in the same world and tells like a parallel story. And this is like if Tolkien was a metalhead, which I like to think that he probably was. This is what you'd get.
I think maybe we just need an entire show for you to kind of go down the rabbit hole of metal. Like that is deep stuff, Daniel, and I will likely not look that up.
I will definitely be playing Sam some of that as our once our episode is over. But we do. I've been waiting. Just don't want to alienate our audience to do a full topic, maybe a full episode.
60 seconds is probably more than enough for the average viewer.
But speaking of kind of looking back and looking on things that are important, near and dear to our hearts, not just metal, but this live stream, the Collision Live.
Yeah.
1 year. We've been doing these.
We should have got a cupcake.
I know. We weren't. Again, we missed the boat. But I thought we just
2 weeks late. But hey.
I thought we'd just sort of talk about that a bit, as far as we don't want to do a super deep dive into all the details of it, but just we've been talking through pop culture for a year now, kind of every week, except for the ones we've missed, trying to find topics and stuff, and just sort of maybe take a moment to step back and just sort of see what we've seen with our show and what we've seen with this culture in general. And the funny thing is, the Collision Live was actually started as on a whim almost. We had some other stuff we were planned, and it was taking too long. We're going to start a live stream to kind of fill the time, give us something to do. And here we are. I think this is like episode 47. But so kind of looking back on, besides just the joy of getting to host, share the table with me, talk about pop culture. What have you sort of seen? What stands out to you?
Yeah, well, I think our first episode was about there was like a $30 movie rental, and I want to say it was Mulan, but I can't. Was it? Okay. So that was like the first, I think, movie to test the waters of like same day release on streaming. This was a year ago, so think back to more pandemic-y, maybe not more, like depending on what part of the world or country you're in. But so that started the same day release, and then as Disney was also fairly new into the streaming platform, and so I think something that we've been tracking, I think from the beginning, was just this whole dance and balance between at home release versus in the theater, and that kind of going back and forth, and even recently having Denis Villeneuve talking about how watching it at home is like driving your speedboat in a bathtub, and so I think that has been one sort of overarching theme since we've started the live stream, is just trying to figure out what's a good balance and what it should look like, movie theaters versus at home viewing, and quite frankly, just this is the direction that the movie industry is going. But I know you had some thoughts and some observations of a year in.
Speaking of that first episode, when I was making the video for Sam, our opening thing, went back to some of those old episodes, and there. Probably don't want to go back to see those first early episodes again.
Yeah,
those are pretty rough, but
I can't recommend that.
But appreciate you guys who are still watching, that started with us when we started this thing. But maybe one of my I was thinking about like sort of a year and what we've talked about and stuff. In general, I'm the one that's usually picking out the topics each week and kind of, usually a couple days before we do the stream, kind of looking through all the entertainment sites and seeing what's kind of being said. And kind of one of my big takeaways is that like every week, probably every day, there's stuff to get mad about and be outraged about in culture. Yeah. And there's also stuff to be excited and geek out about and be, just celebrate. And kind of how how you navigate culture depends on which of those two you kind of choose like as a habit to get into. Like, I think there's definitely the temptation, especially on like a show like this, where I know like, in general, when we do like a more controversial topic, you get more views, you get more engagement, just because people, there's something, almost like sinfully attractive to like anger and ranting and let's just rant about Hollywood and, this may be less attractive than just, hey, let's talk about sci-fi movies or something. But I don't know. I think there's a healthy balance. We tried to do that even in this show. Like, let's switch it up. Let's not just talk. We could every week talk about why Hollywood is just pushing all these agendas and all that kind of stuff. But we don't know if that's healthy. Like, there's also something about just celebrating pop culture, right? Yeah.
Well, and I think now with social media and just the interconnectedness of everyone, and there's just you have connection to way more people than you have ever had in the history of the world, and so that just means statistically there's far more things that will come across your desk or come across your phone that you could be outraged about. And I think that you have to make a deliberate choice to not just be angry all the time. And I think, we see that people are angry all the time, and there's obviously Twitter trolls and all the rest, but that's a choice. Like, you don't have to necessarily be angry all the time. You don't have to be outraged about whatever, even if it's something that is outrageous. You can take a more balanced approach and I think you should take a more balanced approach to your life and just how you engage with pop culture, especially because I think oftentimes the thing that you get outraged about or you feel like you should be outraged about sometimes misses the point of whatever the thing was or whatever the controversy was, and you end up burning more bridges and just isolating yourself within a sort of an echo chamber that is ultimately not healthy.
Yeah, and I think also there's the tendency is to be like super reactionary, where it's like, oh, this person did something dumb in Hollywood, let's just freak out about it, and like, there hasn't been enough time for like the situation to really kind of unfold, or which is what we've, what I've tried to do, like, and even picking the topics is like, some things, if it's sort of a real big conversation going on, like, let's talk about that. But other things, maybe just like, we've had topics where it's like, hey, there's another cancel culture story. Like, I just don't want to do cancel culture again. We can do cancel culture every week. Let's talk about, let's talk about something different and kind of give some more room for these stories to develop, more details to come out. And if it becomes a kind of like I call cultural conversations, where it is something that Christians need to like jump into and start working through, then do it. Don't just avoid it and just
right.
I think Christians should be aware, but yeah, striking that balance between just like, if you're just going to get mad at pop culture every day, then just
rail against the Hollywood machine.
Yeah, rail against Hollywood. Like, then maybe you just need to kind of
just take a break.
From pop culture.
It's okay to put your phone down, take a walk,
like unfollow
go outside.
entertainment news or whatever, wherever you're getting these outrageous stories. But and any other things that kind of stood out as far as looking back on?
Well, just that there are, there's controversies aplenty that we've just seen, and just cancel culture, and that does still kind of be a constant theme throughout the last year. It's just that people getting outraged and mad about stuff, and that maybe they don't necessarily need to be mad about. But yeah, any final takeaways?
Yeah, maybe a final thing that I was thinking of is this, and maybe the first topic of this episode is an example, but just there's not always very simple answers to cultural stuff. I know that's sort of been like one of our mottos is like, don't be reductionist. Like, don't try and just reduce every of these issues into some very simple, well, if you are a Christian or a conservative, you're an atheist, or you're a liberal, or you're a this religion, or like, this is your one, this is what your talking points. You got to believe this. And, if this artist doesn't believe what you do, then whatever they're doing must be wrong. And like, there is a lot of the cultural stuff. I think that's for me, that's why I love the conversations of culture, is because it's not just a simple, okay, there are things that's wrong, that's bad. There definitely are those, but I think for a lot of the stuff, there isn't. There's just sort of like, hey, this isn't like a black or white kind of issue. It's a complicated, messy, like, Christians need to kind of get messy and talk it through. But doesn't necessarily,
Yeah, just because something happened to one person and that's the way it went, you can't just sort of take that template and say, okay, well, the same thing is happening. This person got canceled because they're, trying to be a free person, and this person did, and it's just the same thing. Well, oftentimes, like, each case, especially with cancel culture, is just very different. And so, like, again, to steer away from reductionism and just say, well, just because it looks maybe on the surface similar to the last case isn't necessarily going to be true. And so, like, take each one as it comes and not try and just apply whatever template you used the last time to this situation when maybe it's going to be a little more nuanced.
Yeah, kind of going beyond like the catch, because even cancel culture is one, like you said, like there are people that very different flavors of cancel culture.
Yeah.
Some of them aren't cancel culture. It's just jerky people that shouldn't hold jobs or whatnot. And I think even like this, like the word like woke, like you hear that term thrown out all the time.
Yeah.
And that can be another one that just sort of this covers everything. Like anything that has to do with any kind of racial anything becomes woke, or like pushing some agenda, critical race theory, whatever it is. And like, even like I've seen that with the Shang-Chi movie, the Marvel movie. It's like, woke Disney, now they're just pushing this thing because it's an Asian cast. And it's like, well, no, it's an Asian character, and it's like became a great movie. Like, sort of thinking beyond just sort of the talking points and being okay with there not being necessarily like an answer that's clear.
Yeah, well, and I just think, people hate ambiguity, and so there's just this sort of innate drive to just sort of get to a settled point and say, yeah, this is okay, this is not okay, but trying to like dance in between and say, well, we don't know enough yet or whatever. Like, I just think the human psyche doesn't like that, and so there's a real drive to just say, well, let's just go ahead and tar and feather this person because it seems like all the evidence points that direction.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I always encourage people to sort of, as we end this topic, like to have grace towards like other believers and stuff that may not fall the same way as far as like entertainment choices or the way they process things, like, because it's not necessarily just in a lot of cases a very yes or no kind of thing. There is room for people kind of between them and God to kind of come up with, I've thought through it, done my homework, and this is where I stand. And maybe you don't agree with me, but that's sort of, we both love Jesus, so let's go with that. But let us know what you guys think of, if you guys, just thinking kind of the last year, this year, this kind of recently, like, have you seen any trends, stuff going on in pop culture that you kind of notice as kind of bigger picture stuff? We're excited for our show to keep going. We have, we're constantly adding new stuff, kind of reworking this thing, kind of making it as good as we can, adding some fun stuff. So keep your eye open for that. Speaking of the Collision, and this week at the Collision, we have a couple new things that dropped. One is I did a movie review for Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Again, this is the latest Marvel movie. I'm not a huge Marvel guy. I like them. Just not a huge diehard MCU fan.
But this one
is really good. And I've seen, which is funny because I've seen a lot of people out there saying this is a sort of, very low level Marvel. And like, maybe that's just because I'm coming at it from like an outsider. To me, this felt super different. It felt fun. It didn't really feel like a Marvel movie, at least until the last act. So I enjoyed it. So check out the review on YouTube, and then we have a written version. If you do the whole reading words thing, you can check out
What?
If you're one of those people for the over 40 crowd, check that out. I write about it, and let's love to talk to you guys about it, have a conversation about the movie, and also check out the article that it's not new. It came out the week before, but kind of the evangelicals, people leaving the church. This is an article that's got a lot of traction. A lot of people have just got some good feedback about it. So I'd love to kind of continue to have that conversation. So check that out on thecollision.org. But any final thoughts or anything for us this week?
Yeah, beware the hot take. As I've said it once, I'll say it again. I think it's important just to just take some time and think things through before you give an opinion.
Yeah, so beware the hot take, and join us next week for our hot takes on everything that's going on in pop culture and controversy. Well, we're going to be coming in hot. But encourage you guys to join us next Tuesday at noon. Talk about whatever happens in culture. Thanks for joining us, guys. Make sure to subscribe to our channel, like our page, and all that fun stuff. Comment, like the video. But most of all, stay safe, guys, and continue to collide with the world for Christ.